Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Thursday. Excuse me, not Monday. Thursday. I write notes for myself and I still get it wrong. Thursday. May 15th. This is episode 196. Don, what's that look for?
515.
Just notice how tiny I look between you two guys. Chuck's normal human size. Matt, though.
Well, you sit on a pillow, too.
How much does Matt weigh?
Matt is 6'9", 274.
Matt is working on getting down to 240. He's burned 1,200 calories today.
Nice,
Congratulations,
Matthew.
Matt.
I burned 2,000 calories just yesterday. So we're on our way.
How many you bring in, though?
2,300?
That's not bad.
No. So I was 1,700 below what I was like a normal person my weight would be. So anyway, working on getting there.
I don't think you could live on my diet right now.
Your diet is for
1,200.
yeah. Your diet is for squirrels and rabbits.
Not even squirrels. I think squirrels would have to go looking for.
You saw the salad I had.
I did. I saw your kale salad.
Kale. God. Who eats kale? Like
It's like a punishment.
if you want a roughage, just eat some broccoli or something. Like that. Yeah, honestly. Anyway, we have a lot going on. Let's make this shorter than going off on a tangent right away. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, both News 4 Fox SA. Download, rate, review the podcast version wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, wherever that is. NBA draft lottery today, NFL schedule release today. Two of the biggest or high-profile off-season events in each sport, the NBA and the NFL, happening this week. In the NBA draft lottery, once again, the luckiest team in the NBA sees the ping pong balls fall their way one more time. The Spurs get the number 2 pick in the NBA draft. What are they going to do with the pick? Should they trade it for a bigger star? How valuable is that asset when it comes to trades? We'll talk about all that, plus the NFL schedule release. The Cowboys have a tough schedule, especially on the back end of it. So we'll talk about that, plus the Texans' schedule looking pretty good for them as well, and maybe a preliminary prediction or two when we take a first glance at both of these schedules. So we'll start with the NBA draft lottery. As I said, I'm not sure what the owners of the San Antonio Spurs have done in a past life to get as lucky as they do every single year in the NBA draft lottery, but they get the number 2 in the 14 picks. They had a 6.3% chance to jump up from 8 to 2, and they ended up with the number 2 pick. 14 didn't move at all. They ended up with 14 as well. So they're the only team with 2 lottery picks in this upcoming draft. Guys, what was the reaction on Monday night as you were watching the broadcast, 6 o'clock? You see the ping pong balls. You see, the Spurs not come up at 8, or not come up at 9 because the Mavs had already jumped up. Not come up at 9, so they have a top 4 pick. And then you're going through 4, not the Spurs. 3, not the Spurs.
I was on the air.
You were on the air when it happened?
We actually counted it down. They punched it up in the studio. Javier punched it up in the studio so we could see it. So we were telling the viewers on our newscast as it was happening, Jonathan, it was the toss back from sports, and we were able to say, okay, they're not the 4th, they're not the 3rd, okay, they're the 2nd. It was shocking. I mean, I thought for sure they'd be 14 and 8. I thought it would go for once true to form. So yeah, it was a surprise.
I was never really sure what to expect, but I really felt like I wasn't going to give it a whole lot of energy just because I think I was in the Don camp on that for the most part. Like, okay, 8 and 14 sounds about like how are you going to beat the odds when you got 2 picks, so maybe you hit on one of them, which they ended up doing. But when it got to the beginning, right before you were going to get to the commercial break. Great way of putting it. It was like I felt my heart beating. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, how is lightning continually striking in the same area? This would be now 4 times. And then once they got the commercial break, now you're pondering, this still isn't going to happen. But when the first 2 go off the board, it's like, you have got to be kidding me. I was shocked that they ended up with number 2 at that point, especially given Dallas was the only team left at that point. But I honestly, I couldn't believe my heart was beating on a Monday night watching ping pong balls. And that's what ended up happening.
I got some information for you that'll blow your mind. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Their odds were way up when it was for them in Dallas. Get this. My brother-in-law's in the room. He was representing the Sacramento Kings.
Alvin Gentry.
Alvin Gentry. He was representing the Sacramento Kings in the drawing room. Right,
where Brian Wright was.
Yeah. So in case you don't know, this is how it goes down. They all go, here we go. They pick 6 balls. And that is
4 balls.
Or whatever it is. Is it 4?
4 balls.
Okay. They pick 4 balls. And whoever has that combination of balls, the balls are 1, 8, 12, and 34. Whoever has that combination is the winner.
There's 1,001 combinations of the numbers.
Yeah.
And they have 4 balls numbered 1 to 14.
Right.
And they pick 4 balls. Whoever, has that code
combination wins.
Gets
so you have,
and they only do the top 4 picks.
Right.
They pick the first and then go to 4.
You have a combination, so it's just like buying a lottery ticket. Like the Mavericks, because they only had a 1.8% chance, only had a couple of combinations.
18.
God, you know all the numbers. And the Spurs had?
63.
Okay.
68. No, 60 combinations.
60 combinations. Well, as Alvin tells it, because he's there in the room as it's drawing, they pick the first 3 balls, and it leaves 1 ball left, and that's popping in the machine, right? And Alvin's looking at his combinations.
And there's 20 seconds in between each ball.
Yeah. And he said, if it's 7, the Mavericks win, and that's what the ball was. If it's 9, his Kings are going to win. If it was 5, the Wizards were going to win. But if it was 3, 11, or 14, the Spurs were going to win. They had a 20% chance at that point, more than the other 3 teams.
They had a 3 and 14% or 3 and 14 chance after the first 3 balls. On the last ball, they had a 3 and 14 chance.
Yeah. And the Mavericks only had 1, and so did Dallas and who? I mean,
no, it's crazy. I mean, the way that it all went out,
they almost won.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is,
They should have won.
I was
right?
sitting there.
Point.
I was sitting there in my living room watching it, and by the time they got to 2, I was like, holy bleep! Like this is really going to happen again. Once you've seen them win the lottery so many times now, 3 times they've gotten the first pick in the draft. Once it got to 2, I was like, of course they're going to get it. Like, no way the Mavs get this, right? No way the Mavs get number 1 after Nico sells off Luka for spare parts, and like you have all these weird things happen. There's no way the Mavs are going to get it. The Spurs are the luckiest team in the draft lottery, as evidenced by the 9 times they've been in the lottery. They've improved each time they've been in it. It's unbelievable how the Spurs keep doing this. Let's hear from Brian Wright and Mitch Johnson real quick. This is what they said immediately after the draft lottery aired.
Shock, excitement, you feel all the emotions. But an incredible night. Super excited to get to work and see what the future holds. You want the highest level talent you can and the highest character, and we think that there's good players in this draft that help us accomplish that. Though we're excited to go forward. Great night for the organization, for the city, for the team.
We were excited about having 2 lottery picks in this draft. It's a deep draft. There's a lot of good players, a lot of dynamic, versatile, different type of players. And so I think our group is always going to do the due diligence and look at just 2 good young pieces to add to the group. And now obviously at 2, you get a little bit more pick the litter, and we'll be excited to get going on this.
First time I've ever seen NAB on a lower third.
I was going to comment on the lower third for Mitch Johnson. It still looks weird not saying interim or acting head coach Mitch Johnson.
NAB. You don't see NAB.
I like using words that people don't usually use.
I like that. It looks like you had very little characters or very few characters to work with, and you had to use the word NAB in order to conserve space.
What word did you guys want me to use? You know what? You come up with the supers.
Grab.
That's 1 too many.
Earn.
That's too many characters.
Fortuitously.
Fortuitously is way too many characters. All right, so
land.
Shh, too many characters. So let's look at where we are now. So 1.8% chance the Mavs got the number 1 pick. They ended up with it. Spurs had a 6.3% chance. They ended up with the number 2 pick. The Sixers had a 10% chance. They ended up with 3. And who got 4? Forgot who got 4. Anyway, doesn't matter.
Utah got
Utah got jobbed, but that's just how the lottery works. Also, for anyone who's saying it's rigged, like it's impossible.
No.
It's literally impossible to.
Not impossible.
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible.
It is like 1%, less than 1%, 0.1% chance that this thing can be rigged.
Chuck and I figured out how it could be rigged the other day.
Okay, we're not going to go into that. You're going to give a lot of conspiracy theorists out there some fodder.
But
Anyway,
it's not rigged.
all right, it's not. It's not rigged.
I'm with both of you on that one. I don't see it. You don't rig
impossible.
these things for small market teams.
Well, also you have to anyway.
It's
There's so
impossible.
many safeguards in there for this to be rigged. Like it's not. So anyway, you look at how the draft is going to go now. Cooper Flagg's going to be off the board in all likelihood unless something miraculous happens.
he is.
And he's not. Like the Mavericks have already said he's the number 1 pick.
Stop it. Stop. All the people on Twitter, stop it. He's going to go back to Duke because he doesn't want to play to Dallas. Stop it. He looked unhappy. Stop it. Stop it. He's going to the Mavericks, and he's going to be very happy.
And he's going to be very good.
Yes.
And that's going to be a really good team.
Very good.
That's going to be a hell of a squad.
That was my
assuming
takeaway.
Kyrie resigns when he's healthy.
Assuming Kyrie is healthy and assuming AD is healthy, which both are really big assumptions.
How do you know he's going to be happy?
Because he's going to a great city with a great franchise, and they're good already.
They're very
And he's
good.
going to be playing with Derek Lively, who was at Duke, who's very good. Gafford's very good. They got a good team.
So the Spurs are going to, like Mitch said, have the pick of the litter at 2. Let's assume right now, let's take it by scenario. So this scenario is assuming that the Spurs do not trade the pick. So we're going to talk about trades here in a second. Assuming they do not trade the pick, Don, who do they pick it to?
Dylan Harper. It's not even close. It's already done.
Why?
He's by far the second best player. And there was a point last year where he was coming out of high school as a junior. He was the number 1 player. He was ranked ahead of Flagg, although Flagg was a year behind him in those City of Palms Classics and some of those showcases. Flagg passed him up and probably deservingly so after his summer at Camp USA. But this kid's been on the radar since he was 15. He's been USA basketball 17 and under. If you watch his tape, he's really, really good. He's really good.
There's other players that people are referring to. Ace Bailey, I think it's Aresius, something like that. His name
Arias.
isn't actually. Thank you. His name actually isn't Ace, but they call him Ace. Ace Bailey is the other kid from Rutgers. He's more of a 6'7", lengthy, rangy wing. And then VJ Edgecombe, also a shooting guard, point guard combo. That's the Baylor kid. So Ace Bailey's the other one that people are like, maybe they'll take a wing. Maybe they'll take him. Why is it Dylan over Ace?
I think he's much better player. He's much more pro ready. He projects as a much more higher floor and higher ceiling long term, and he's just better. And right now, this goes back to, I remember in the '80s when the Blazers picked Sam Bowie at number 2 instead of Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm. Because they already had a guard.
You don't pick. Yeah, they have Castle. They have Fox. They don't need a 6'6" big point guard. But in today's NBA, you pick talent, not position. You play them all together. I mean, when the Spurs were at their height, Manu came off the bench. They still had Tony, and they played other guards next to him. You can't have an abundance of great players. And so you take the best player, you're up, and move. As we've been talking about, you can move Keldon, you can move Jeremy, you can move Dylan.
But you
Devin.
can't. But you're not going to move De'Aaron or Steph, and those are the two.
That's correct.
Those are the two that are going to get in Dylan Harper's way.
They're
In
not gonna-
theory, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
In theory,
here.
you could play him at 1, 2, and 3 and play them together.
What about Devin Vassell?
You move him.
Okay, so you do.
He's better. He's better today than Devin Vassell.
Oh, hot take.
Yeah,
You think
Harper's
Dylan
better.
Harper is better right this second than Devin Vassell is?
100.
Wow.
Hot take.
100.
Hot take.
So is Steph Castle.
Well, he's also in the NBA for a reason.
Yeah. But for 6 months, I take him.
So
I think they take him.
Chuck, going to the trade scenario now.
Mm-hmm.
Should the Spurs trade the second overall pick for a more established player, a Giannis, a Lauri Markkanen?
You said me hot take. Wait till you hear this.
So I'm about to betray myself because I've been on the bandwagon since almost day one of this reconstruction of staying the course, getting younger talent, rookie contracts, don't do anything crazy, build your house one brick at a time.
But
however,
Love it when there's a however.
the epiphany hit me on Monday as I was getting ready for work. It's like, I can't believe I got to watch another lottery and be excited about a what if or a maybe, or this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And this is a championship caliber roster as assembled and blah, blah, blah. I mean, just so with that in mind, and the fact that, yes, I can say that the window, and I've said it here before, doesn't fit with Giannis. And I probably said that within the last couple of weeks.
multiple times.
If you tell me you're positive, your scouting department can tell me that within the next 3 years, because we don't know long-term what Victor is, where he's going to be playing 10 years from now. The assumption, of course, he's going to stay here and have his whole career. In the here and the now, if you can tell me without too much of a stretch that you could get somebody like a Giannis and have him be a really good player for the next 3 years, unless you can tell me that one of these guys in the draft, other than Cooper Flagg, because I believe he's a guy that you'll,
Right.
you can for sure pencil in for the next 10 years on your team if you can get him to stay, all that. But these other guys that I've never heard of for the most part, I say make a move. Make a big move. Do everything in your power. If Giannis is available, keep him off of somebody else's roster. Keep him off of somebody else's roster in your state. I'm to the point where I don't want to be sitting here again next year worried about ping pong balls and acting like I'm excited about it. I'm okay if people are. I personally am not.
What makes you think that that would be the case now that they have Fox, Castle, Wemby coming back, assuming he's healthy?
Small sample size, obviously, and you're right. I mean, there's that, right? If they play together as a team, they play together a whole season, they're whole for a whole season. Are they 4 or 5 games better, and then they can get into the playoffs next year? I would say, as we sit here today, probably, right? Given how they're assembled.
How many games better do you think they'll be?
Next year?
Yeah.
Without assuming health with Dylan Harper?
Yeah.
Or just as they sit currently?
as they sit currently.
As they sit currently, I think this is a 44-ish win team. With De'Aaron Fox on the team for the entire season, with Wemby healthy for the entire season, I think this is a 44, 45.
As this team's currently assembled, and when they were healthy, the rookie of the year wasn't playing much. In fact, he was demoted and his minutes were cut and all that. So I think it's safe or fair to say that you can't necessarily make that leap with him as part of the equation of this team making a huge leap in terms of numbers, because the coaching staff, whatever it was that put Castle on the bench to begin with, there was a reason for it. Yeah. So there probably is a huge upside. I'm not saying that there isn't, but how much better would they be with Giannis? I don't know. The argument against that, I've made it here before, right? He wasn't stopping Halliburton at the end of games, and I would say as both rosters are currently assembled, Milwaukee and San Antonio, I would give the Bucks a much better advantage in that regard in terms of overall talent, and yet they got bounced pretty early on, right? So they made the playoffs. So how much better would it make? I don't know. But in terms of fan excitement, getting more people behind this team, that there is hope now. You still got assets down the road. Your cap still isn't ridiculously out of control. So that's why I say do something, and do something to really shake things up. And I think, if nothing else, tell your fan base, look, the future is now. We've got to make a move, and we're going to make a move because this guy might be available. I'm not saying you mortgage the whole future, but let's see if you can, within reason, go out and get a talent like Giannis, who's a freaking marquee stud, you name it, selling tickets kind of guy.
I think you're assuming the Spurs give a crap what the fans think. And I don't think they do. I don't think they care if the fans are getting
I think
itchy.
they do, But I mean, I think it's kind of cool in some ways that they've done it the way they've done it. But to me, you've been drafting high and you've gotten another one. I mean, what has it gotten you?
I don't disagree with that point. I think the price is, for me, the deal breaker. They're going to ask for number 2, number 14, Castle, 27 number 1, maybe 31 number 1. If I could keep not both, but Castle or Harper, I would consider doing the deal. If it cost me Harper, 14, Devin, and Jeremy, and a couple of picks, I would say yes.
Okay.
As long as I could keep Fox, one of those two, Castle or Harper, and get Giannis and Wemby.
And Wemby, obviously.
Then I would think you could do that. But
Yanni.
I don't think they do. I don't think they do it for less.
Okay, so
Yanni had great hair, by the way.
Yanni. So I want to run through a couple scenarios here. So I wasn't expecting Chuck to say that.
This is a recent thing for me.
Because,
so
because I haven't really talked to him much
was the
since
Monday
I'm trying
shower
to shake
epiphany.
things up a little bit.
He's sitting there washing his white hair, and he's like,
You
know
know-
what? I hate ping pong balls.
Why'd you have to call his hair white?
Yes. Well, I mean,
Because
it's
mine is
obvious.
mine's getting there.
Yes.
'Cause,
No,
so-
Okay.
Look, no
I need to
autopsy,
introduce
no
you
foul,
guys
bro.
to a touch of gray.
Yeah.
I need to introduce you to a hat. Anyway, so I want to run through. So this is a.
She's not wrong. He's not
And
wrong.
me, one of those Beanie
I
and
mean,
Cecil caps.
you need a yarmulke.
He's
With a
not
little-
wrong.
Right, with a little whirly
That's
bird on
very
top.
smart. You got to have a big brain inside a head that big.
That's right.
Otherwise, it would rattle around.
I only use about. People use about 19% of their brain. I think I use about 4%.
Don't sell yourself short, bro.
So I want to stop me when there's a player that you wouldn't trade the number 2 pick. So I'm going to assume that they're not going to include Steph and the number 2 pick in a trade. I think that's a deal breaker for the Spurs as well. So which of these players would you trade either a package surrounding the number 2 pick or Steph Castle for? I think this is the top 21 players in the league, according to ESPN last year, before this past season.
Who am I giving up?
You're giving up at least Steph or the number 2 pick.
Okay.
It's a package.
One or the other.
One or the other. You're never going to package both.
Okay.
Nikola Jokic is the obvious yes, in my opinion.
Yes.
Luka Doncic.
No.
No,
Giannis.
Yes.
maybe.
Yes, maybe. SGA.
Yes.
Tatum.
Not anymore.
Not
even
anymore.
close.
If I ask this on Monday, maybe.
Yes.
Steph, LeBron, I'm going to say no because they're both old.
Correct.
KD, no because they're old.
Correct.
Embiid can't stay on the floor.
Correct.
Anthony Edwards.
Yes.
Jalen Brunson.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think I would.
Yeah.
Okay. Anthony Davis, I'm going to say no.
No.
No for Anthony Davis.
No. I'm not
No.
an AD fan.
Again, it's
Okay.
yeah.
Here's a realistic
there enough.
possibility. Jalen Brown.
That's a good.
Because there's rumors they might blow it up this offseason.
They might have to now
They might
with
have to.
their big
With-
guy down. Although they played pretty damn well without him the other
It's true.
night.
It's true. They still got to win 2 more to even make.
I
the
would
conference
probably give
finals.
up one of those guys, but not both. Yep.
I mean, and this is not even talking about. So if they do make a trade for a guy like that, right? You could still go out in free agency and go get another guy.
You
Like
could.
there's a chance
Their cap is really
you could,
good.
Right. You could get a Nas Reed or name the guy, right? Whoever they wanted to go get to add to the group. I mean, I think the options are endless, and I think that's the beauty of winning, wink, wink, another lottery. I mean, although they didn't win it, they got number 2. There's high value with that pick. The question is the guy that you would be taking at number 2 as good as one of these established guys that already has a resume in the NBA? And obviously we don't know. You're not going to know with a kid that's 18, 19 years old or whatever the case may be. But I feel like you could flip this pretty damn quickly
And I think
and get people excited along the way.
that's exactly why they will stay right where they're at. They will take this kid. Look, Castle surprised the heck out of them. They'd love to take credit and say they saw it all along, but he surprised them. I think they'll take the young kid and they'll see if this team goes from 32 wins to 45 or 50 or 37. And you look at the Oklahoma City model. They were 20, 22, then like 44, something like that. And then all of a sudden, boom, 54 and 60. So are they ready to do that now? Are they ready to go from where they were at 32 to 47 or 50 next year? As is.
Maybe.
I think they'll give it that shot with this team. And then if not, then you can move Castle, who everybody loves. You can move Harper, who everybody loves. You could Oh yeah, you have a lot.
So, but what you're
now,
saying?
I'm not saying they don't move Devin this summer.
I don't think Devin's on the opening day roster next year.
You don't think he's on the roster?
I don't think he's on the roster
either.
next year.
I don't either.
I think he's.
I think they make
season.
minor moves.
Yeah.
This summer.
I don't think, but trading Devin isn't a minor move.
No, I agree.
Correct. It's a mid-major.
It's a mid-sized move.
It's a mid-major.
It's a mid-major.
It's George Mason.
Who I would love to see in a Spurs uniform is Naz Reid. Put Naz Reid on the Spurs, and I will be eternally happy.
He's very popular on Twitter with Spurs.
Last thing I wanted to ask. There was before we get to the rest of it, we're already running behind, but where is that trade that I saw? So, would you do this? Lauri Markkanen was the huge talk of last year, and now he can be traded because he's been signed. There's no trade restrictions anymore. He just has this big contract. So, would you take this trade? Spurs receive Lauri Markkanen and the 5th overall pick from the Jazz for Keldon Johnson, Harrison Barnes, Blake Wesley, the 2nd and 14th pick.
I'd have to do a little more studying, but it's
I would do
intriguing.
that in a heartbeat. I would do that in a freaking heartbeat. Because you give me the 5th pick, who can still get a really good player. Knipple, exactly. That's who I had in mind as well. Or Malawak, if you really want to go that way. And then you get Lauri Markkanen, who's the stretch 4 that can take some pressure off of Wemby. And in turn, you're giving up KJ, who is the emotional leader, but we all love him. Harrison Barnes, who's old. 2 and 14, who is going to end up being a great player and a decent player. I mean, that sounds intriguing to me.
That seems like a lot for Lauri Markkanen.
Lauri Markkanen is a top 30 player in the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to study it a little bit more before I go on one side or the other, but I would hate to see Harrison Barnes leave. I just think there's value with him. I think there's value with Chris Paul too, and I think you might be able to get 2 really good guys less than market value. And plus they produced this year. I mean, what they did, those 2 guys at their age, I mean, I think they've earned the right to come back here. I hope the Spurs think the same way.
What about 14, a number 1 down the road, not number 2, Devin and Keldon or Jeremy. Devin and Jeremy, 14 and a 27 number 1 for Markkanen.
They won't give it up without 2 being in there, I don't think. Bob, anything before we move on to the Cowboys?
Well, Safe Space Invader says Lauri's been injured every year of his career. I repeat, every year. Hard no. And Mike Guerrero's in the house.
Hi, Mike.
Shout out Tom Guerrero. Tom Guerrero.
Yeah, Tom. There you go.
We also got a hello from Argentina. We have somebody from Argentina.
Argentina?
Yeah, I got to go back and see what it was. But
they speak Spanish in Argentina.
That's what I understand.
What part of Argentina?
I don't know.
Well, he can answer my question. Where are you from? Bahia Blanca.
We'll put it up there.
Wait a second. Anyway.
See if he answers.
Well, thanks for tuning in from Argentina.
That's cool.
Hola. That's almost all I've got. All right, let's move on to the Cowboys here. The Cowboys and Texans schedule was released yesterday. Can you pop up the Cowboys schedule for me here, Javi? Thank you. Pretty tough. Open the season against the Eagles. Then you're home to the Giants, at the Bears. Then you get a primetime game against the Packers. A lot of primetime games on there. 6 primetime games to be exact for the Cowboys. They're also the only team in NFL history with 4 Thursday night games in the same season. Obviously, they have their normal Thanksgiving game, plus Christmas this year, plus the opening game of the season, plus the normal Thursday night game that everyone gets. And then this little caveat. From weeks 12 to 17, the Cowboys play the Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, and Commanders, all teams that won at least 11 games last season. The Cowboys will be the first team in history to play 6 straight games against teams that all won 11-plus games in the previous year. Stephen Jones was asked about that today, and this is what Stephen Jones had to say about the difficulty of the late run.
Certainly, we've got some challenges early going on the road, quite a bit. I think 5 of our first 8 are on the road, but like you said, we've got a spicy schedule at the end. When you say, hey, what you compare to last year's playoff teams, we have a big run there, playing a lot of playoff teams. So we look forward to that, and Shotty's fired up about the schedule, and we're ready to go.
Man, spicy schedule is right. This schedule is a murderer's row, especially late in the year. Okay,
yeah, for me, this looks a lot like the Spurs schedule last year in that I think we're going to find out a lot about this team early. Like if you don't make hay early, you're setting yourself up for disaster towards the end of the year because of how many games there are against tough opponents, for the Spurs in their case, how many road games that you have in the back end of the season. So they better make hay early and they better stay healthy. I think it's a given for all these teams, especially teams in the NFC East, where I believe it's the Giants have the toughest schedule, the Eagles have the 4th hardest schedule, and the Cowboys have the 5th hardest schedule. Your team is going to look different at the end of the year than it is at the beginning, but how early can these teams get their young guys to become key contributors is going to really factor into some of this. I mean, look around the league, though. There's not many cupcakes anymore anywhere. Everybody's going to have a tough schedule, but it is really surprising that the Cowboys are going to have to end the season on that kind of a run, and having to play 9 playoff teams from the year before is just amazing.
At least you end against the Giants. That's a Dak win right there against the Giants.
Well, I mean, you could make that argument too. They got the Eagles twice. Right. Dak's 9-4 against them, but easier said than done.
I can tell you guys exactly what's going to happen.
Okay.
31 years now, David Chancellor and I. 31 years, David Chancellor and I grabbed the schedule, and today we did it this morning over a quarter moon. And
why are you taking mine? I literally gave you a copy.
And we go, that's a win, that's a loss, that's a win. So we came up with 8-9 and 9-8.
I think the Cowboys win 10 games.
I'm going to err on the side of 8 wins right now because of the schedule, if nothing else, and how it shapes up at the end.
Okay.
And the fact that other teams will be similarly going all in and mass physicality to try to make and punch their ticket to the postseason.
What I also wanted to say when it comes to the Cowboys schedule is I think right when the schedule came out, there was a high demand for some tickets. Tickets weren't really available widely until today. Season ticket holders could put theirs up on secondary sites already. So there was a high demand for 3 games. The opener, Cowboys, Eagles. The Thanksgiving game, Cowboys and Chiefs, right? And then the Christmas game, the Cowboys again. They had the 3 top out of the top 5 were all Cowboys games. It tells you exactly what
who
this
America's
team is. Who America's team still is. I mean, yes, it's the Chiefs too. The Chiefs are suddenly encroaching on that title.
Man, they're the Yankees.
They are. Yeah. I do want to go through this real quick. The Cowboys schedule. Javi, if you want to pop it up one more time for me, the Cowboys schedule instead of the Texans one. We'll get to that right now. I can see a path to 10 or 11 wins on this schedule.
Okay.
At Philadelphia historically starts
That's
slow.
A loss.
I think that's a win at Philadelphia.
It's a loss.
Home to the Giants is a win.
That's a win.
At the Bears, I don't know which one they'll lose. Is at the Bears or home to the Packers? They'll lose one of those two. So I'm gonna call it 3-1. Beat the brakes off of the Jets in the Meadowlands. Beat the brakes off of the Panthers. That's 5-1. Lose to the Commanders.
They're not going 5-1.
Lose to the Panthers.
4-2.
Lose to the Commanders. Lose to the Broncos because they're the best team in the AFC, obviously.
4-4.
And beat the Cardinals. So 6-3 at the bye.
5-4.
Beat the Raiders, 7-3. Lose to the Eagles at home, 7-4. Lose to the Chiefs on Thanksgiving, 7-5. Beat Detroit in Detroit.
No.
8-5.
What are you smoking?
How?
Beat Minnesota
They beat Detroit in Detroit.
Beat Minnesota at home, 9-5. Beat the Chargers at home, 10-5. Lose to the Commanders. Beat the Giants. 11. That's 11 wins. That's a doable thing. During that stretch, what do you think they're going to do? Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. Philadelphia, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, Commanders.
The best they can do is 3-3 there.
The Vikings aren't going to be as good as they were last year.
They're not beating the Lions in Detroit.
The Chargers are going to take a step back. The Chiefs are not going to be as good as they were.
The 3 games that can swing the schedule is at the Jets, the Chargers, and
the Broncos,
the Vikings,
and the Panthers.
No, they'll beat the Panthers.
You have some must wins on there though. You have the Jets as a must win. The Panthers are a must win. I think the Chargers are a must win. And then both Giants games.
The Jets can beat them. The Chargers can beat them. Probably won't, but those are games that they got to win.
Well, the Broncos are definitely going to beat them. That's for sure.
They avoid the snow though. They get all that early in October.
After the game against the Broncos in Denver, they don't play an outdoors game until the Meadowlands against the Giants in the last week of the season. It's all indoors.
Yeah.
So, if Dak's healthy, I can see 11 wins on that schedule. It's a tough freaking schedule though. Let's go to the Texans real quick. What?
They won 7. They won 7 games last year. Who told you they're going to win 7 games?
He's right one time in his life, and he keeps on telling us. So the Texans schedule moderately easier, I would say. They play the Monday night game early against Tampa Bay. They open up at the Rams. Chuck, looking at the Texans schedule, what did you think of that one?
I really haven't had a chance to deep dive on the Texans. I was just grateful that there's going to be more Texans games on Fox SA this year than I can ever remember. I mean, there are going to be 4 of them at least. And so I think that's pretty cool. I just think the Texans are in a much better position, obviously, than the Cowboys are, right? There's less variable or fewer variables that, going into the season, at least off the top of my head. Like if you're a fan of both teams, you want to see both teams do well. I think most people within reason would say they're less worried about the Texans having a fantastic year than the Cowboys at this point.
All I know is that November 2nd, when the Broncos visit the Texans, I'm going to need that day off. Might make a day trip down there to Houston
it's
to see
on
the
Fox,
Broncos play.
yeah. We do a little post-game report.
Hey,
right
there you go.
The
There you go. See?
I think the Texans are going to be good.
I think the Texans have the easiest division in the freaking league besides the
And their
NFC
defense
South.
is so good, and
they've
they've helped their needs. They blew up. They were so proactive this offseason with their offensive line and their receivers. I really like what they did.
The AFC in general is so deep. Like the AFC is probably 11 teams deep. It's like the West in the NBA. Like it's so deep.
And the concern I think for Texans fans is the offensive line. I mean, you got new coaching staff, new OC, a lot of new parts up front. I mean, it might take them a while to start humming, but I think if they find their stride, and they brought in some pretty professional guys, we'll see what ends up happening. But yeah, I would feel much more comfortable as a Texans fan going into this season with that schedule as opposed to where the Cowboys were last year, their schedule, and what might look like in 2025.
2 quick things. I love that the creativity of all the creative departments now for all the NFL teams are coming up with these schedule release videos because they're hilarious. So many of them. Also, the Chargers schedule release team does a great job, as they typically do. But I love that this has become a thing where everyone comes up with this idea and does all these cool little videos. It's awesome. And the second thing I think we can all agree on is that we're really, really happy that the Browns don't have a primetime game this year.
They earned it.
You say that the Cowboys did too with a 7-win season or coming off of it, and yet here they are second behind the Chiefs in terms of number of primetime games.
Who was it? The Browns, the Titans, and Jags? There's 3 teams that don't have a primetime game, and I know it's the Browns and the Titans. So I'm just happy we don't have to see that again. Anyway, that's all we got for you today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We will be back on Monday. See you then.